Okay, so now we have our conclusion, these two little paragraphs. So one of the things that we got in the first paragraph was this idea that propaganda applies to all of us. In the conclusion, we have a much more clear understanding of who us is. And again, she uses first person plural. You're not allowed to do that in this class, but again, this is a professional essay. She can get away with it. So she says the cornerstone of democratic society is reliance upon an informed and educated electorate. To be fully elected citizens, we need to be able to challenge and to question wisely. So there we understand democratic society, fully effective as citizens, and then she uses we, so she includes herself. So from those three things, we know she's talking about Americans, right? She's talking to American citizens, and probably ideally those who vote, right? And she says here that today so many people don't think that voting matters or that they can make a difference. They just kind of stereotype that all politicians are probably crooked, all political parties are partisan, you can't trust anyone. And she says that that isn't true. She says that we have to be able to make the distinctions between, the really rotten bills and the rotten politicians and the ones that aren't. And she says if we don't learn to make those distinctions, that this kind of apathy will be fatal to democracy. So let's take a step back and think about what we do in a conclusion, right? In our conclusions, we start off by restating or paraphrasing what our thesis was. She doesn't do that here fully. Again, this is a professional essay, so she's not following necessarily the academic model. But if you remember what her thesis was, it was that in order to be, right, that, to avoid being bamboozled, we need to be informed, right, that of the things that people are doing to try to deceive us. So she does hearken to that idea, being informed and educated, right? And so she does kind of give us that idea that, we need to be smart here. We need to make good choices, right? The next thing that we do is we usually give some kind of summary and reflection about what has come before in the body paragraphs, and then we move on to that so what factor. We finish our essay by arguing, this is why this matters. This is why you should care about what I've told you. And so here we do see that right here, right? The dangerous feeling of indifference towards our political processes exists today. We often abandon our right or duty to criticize and evaluate by dismissing all politicians as crooked, blah, 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 but there are important distinctions to be made. When you go back and you look through all of her examples, just notice how often she puts it in a political context. This Senator Yak-a-lot appears quite a lot, right? So she is making kind of a democratic political argument throughout. And so she does kind of hearken back to that in this section. But then this last thing, this last little paragraph, this is that so what factor. This is what she's telling us to get us to move. And this is where she brings in pathos in a way that's acceptable, right? So she said, if we are to be led, let us not be led blindly, but critically, intelligently, with our eyes open. If we are to continue to be a government by the people, let us become informed about the methods and purposes of propaganda so we can be the masters, not the slaves of our destiny. And so if you think about that, who wouldn't want to be critically and intelligent? Who wouldn't want to be the master rather than the slave, right? And again, by saying the government by the people, she's referencing Abraham Lincoln's Gettysburg Address, right? That the government of the people, by the people, and for the people shall not perish, right? And so she's evoking Lincoln, and she's talking about this is our duty and our rights as citizens, right? And, we all want to be, smart, right? Who wants to be considered, blind and all of that? So this is why it matters. This is what she's trying to do to get us to act.